The first act of creation was light. Light is the symbol of the new creation, the new week. Poised between the past and the future, we recall the words of an Israeli poet. Whatever will be in the future already was in the past. Let us therefore heed the words of the prophet, Zechor Yemot Olam, remember the days of old, and turn back to the beginning, our beginning, 100 years ago.
At the turn of the century, when the growing city of Queens became a borough of New York, Jewish families living in Flushing would travel to worship in the synagogues of Manhattan. In 1901, a small group of men, feeling the need for a local organized Jewish presence, met at the home of the Ellison family. At that meeting, Congregation Sha'arei Tfilah, Temple Gates of Prayer, was born. On Rosh Hashanah in 1901, the fledgling congregation held its first services in a rented public hall on Amity Street, now Roosevelt Avenue. 20 years later, a $30,000 contract was signed for the construction of a new building. Congregation Sha'arei Tfilah's first synagogue was built on Amity Street and dedicated in 1921. After building the synagogue, the congregation's dream was to build a community center. 2 years into the Great Depression, the congregation raised some $50,000 so as to fulfill that dream. It was to be an institution that Max Ringel would describe as throbbing with Jewish life and activity. The dream was realized in 1931 when the congregation built a school and social hall adjacent to the original synagogue.
May the laying of the cornerstone for your new social center and school receive God's choicest blessing.
At the temple itself, where the congregants gathered for prayer, was much smaller, and it seemed very crowded on holidays. In fact, some people would stand in the back.
I was married in '48. Rabbi Dubin was then the rabbi.
Rabbi Dubin told his congregants,
"You have made our spiritual residence pulsate with life."
As years passed, the community thrived and grew. New and larger facilities were needed. In 1960, a beautiful modern synagogue was erected on Parsons Boulevard. The congregation swelled with pride.
It was more modern thinking, definitely.
In those days, in 1963, we had a school with 350 children. We were a lot of people, and a lot of young people coming into the community. We all seemed to have moved at once.
During the decades that followed, the synagogue achieved new heights. Its membership increased, its religious school grew, and its programs expanded.
During the late 60s, there was a great deal of turnover in the Jewish community in Flushing. Rabbi Schaffler said, look, there are other considerations. You may have a prettier home, but your Jewish life is going to be poorer.
Rabbi Schaffler cared passionately about Jewish lives, all Jewish lives. He was particularly worried about the condition of the Jews in the Soviet Union. He encouraged us to do something and inspired us to have a rally. And literally all the Jewish organizations and synagogues in the North Shore were with us as one.
But in March of 1977, a devastating fire gutted the temple.
The area was just beginning to really be visibly changing then, and we had a terrible fire here. The building was really destroyed, and we had a rabbi here, a young rabbi here, and he felt that we should not rebuild. People were running here. We were rescuing Torahs. My husband, Hank Greenberg, It was a night of just weeping and weeping and weeping, because for many of us, this was our life and our history was gone. And then there were meeting after meeting of the people who said, don't rebuild, do rebuild, don't rebuild. Where will we get the money? What will we do?
We felt that the Jewish community of Flushing deserved a symbol around which it could gather, so we decided to rebuild from the ashes.
2 years later, Mayor Ed Koch joined the community as it dedicated the rebuilt synagogue, now more beautiful than ever.
For nearly a century, this venerable house of worship has been a source of inspiration and hope for the greater Flushing community. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
At 100 years, Temple Gates is the oldest synagogue in Queens.
We're surrounded by Asians and Indians, and to have a synagogue, a Jewish synagogue in the middle of all this, that's vital, while other synagogues are floundering. I think it's a testament to the rabbi and to the members here.
It has become a center for Jewish life in the midst of a mixed and multicultural community, a neighborhood in which more than 125 different languages are spoken.
It's amazing that members now who live out well out in the island still attend services here on Saturdays, and also participate in many of our functions, even though they're no longer living in the area.
Conservative Judaism is meeting new challenges. Jews who at one time recited prayers by rote now want more knowledge and greater understanding. They want ritual participation to include women. They want a sense of empowerment in their religious life, and they want to experience a sense of community.
I'm doing something that I never in my whole life thought I would be able to do. I mean, to stand on the bima on a Saturday morning before 150 people and for an hour and a half to chant the prayers, to me it's a tremendous accomplishment. That first year we learned to do Shachrit, which is the early morning service, and then we've done Musaf since then.
Embrace the melody, and that's what makes it beautiful, and you put your whole self into it.
It's fascinating, really, because it's more than just learning the melodies and the chants. We learn the history of the prayers and everything associated with it. And it's a very stimulating experience. Being here is more than just coming in, saying the prayers, and leaving. Relationships spring up between us.
Shul is like your serenity. You come and you sit down. You could be peaceful. You could be talking. You could be meeting. I met my husband while I was saying Kaddish for my mom. He was one of the millionaires. We've been married now for 8 years.
Just because he goes around knocking them down doesn't mean they're going to stop them.
Everybody should come together. It creates an order.
And maybe they were even told how much to give.
The rabbi holds classes on Tuesday nights, and you come here to learn.
And the offering of your hand and your vows and your free will offerings.
And it was considered to be it would help.
Our rabbi makes things a pleasure. He has learned so much in his life, and he just brings it all to us.
By her own mate.
I mean, they were like regular shuls.
No, it was told that you should sacrifice on a higher place.
Exactly. The Torah says you sacrifice on a high place. What does a high place mean? It means some kind of an altar of stone.
I needed some place where I could go, where people will accept me for what I am. I do believe in God, and Judaism is a very basic thing in my life.
Adonai Hamparach Leolam Va'ed Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Lanu Et Torato Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah. Amen.
The joy of learning in your classes fulfilled every desire that I had all my life. Rabbi, you helped put it all together, this sense of truly what it means to be Jewish.
In 1987, Rabbi Thaler prepared 33 women for a group bat mitzvah. In 1997, 19 more women became benot mitzvah. For many of those women, this was the first time they rose from the seated congregation and ascended the bima.
I really felt like I was taking on a certain sense of being Jewish, being like a vessel for our history, and forming a community with the women of our temple.
Sim shalom ba'olam.
All of us excited, nervous, laughing, crying.
I loved every bit of it.
I not only made my family proud, but I made myself proud.
And I can read, and I know a lot more about religion and about Judaism.
And I shall be forever grateful for him, for his Hebrew lessons, and for what he has taught me about life.
It's become an extended family.
With the Temple Gates crew, or as my husband calls us, the rabbis' groupies, I think it made it extra special. You know, rabbi is really a teacher, and it was another way to learn about our religion and about our history and about Israel.
It's a different thing to be away with your grandchild, to have them separate from their families, and to be with you for a period of time. And it's a form of bonding, I think, that you don't get from a day-to-day relationship.
This is a shul that, no matter what happens or what fund it is, if it's for our children, we do everything.
In 1982, a trust fund established by Abe and B. Rosen enabled the congregation students to travel and study in Israel.
Most of the people, like in America or anywhere, like you won't wear your kippah on the street, and in Israel, it's just like different.
Our synagogue has been able to, in the last 15 years, allow anybody who wants to go for study, for education, any student, a scholarship to go there. And everybody in this room has benefited from it.
Everyone sits next to each other, and we talk, and we hang out, and there's hour or 3-hour bus rides, and we all just become really good friends.
And the fact that I went with my synagogue, and it was sort of like my whole Jewish community sort of went to another place altogether and kept that sense of community, and just, it was really great.
We had classes on the top of mountains. We went from Abraham all the way up till, like Barak and Netanyahu, and so I have this really strong sense of what it means to be a Jewish person.
And now I'm back sitting in social studies class, and I'm just like, oh, well, when I was in Israel, we learned about this, blah, 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 and everyone's like, oh, really?
It was like a real bonding experience, I think, for the, the younger people. And so I have this really strong sense of what it means to be a Jewish person, and just the fact that I can go for free, I think is unbelievable. Like, I've never heard of it. I tell my friends that we have this fund in our shul, and they're amazed.
The temple has been blessed with the means to reach out to the community.
What's the first address, Nina?
133-17 Sanford Avenue, apartment 3D.
The real beauty of this program is that the people of this synagogue actually go out there and deliver it to people. So one, it's a gift, and you're giving it to somebody, and two, you're seeing how people live. And there are many seniors in the area who just can't get out and are living at a poverty level.
Okay, so you're fine. That's it.
No more?
We never have trouble getting volunteers for this program. Now, I go out and I call a lot of people, but the truth is they love doing it. The parents certainly realize that this, for their children, is a great way to see. It's one thing to write a check to a charity, but when you do it yourself.
Thank you.
There's traditional Passover foods in the package. There's eggs and gefilte fish, macaroons.
During the waves of Russian immigration, Temple Gates of Prayer welcomed the new arrivals. Programs were offered to help them integrate into the Jewish world. The congregation distributed mezuzot to the new families, established classes for the teaching of English, taught Jewish customs and ceremonies, and helped them to observe the Jewish holidays.
Left hand under, right hand over, and around.
One thing that Temple Gates of Prayer does is it empowers people. It gives them the knowledge to feel good about coming to the synagogue and what the synagogue does.
I have learned things I never knew before that I did not learn in my childhood. As I remain here, I keep on learning more and more.
And I just wanted to know how it was made, why things were made a certain way.
I mean, I could go to a synagogue in my neighborhood and just daven, and that would be okay. But there's a lot more to it here. There's dancing, there's singing, there's food, there's nice people. What more could you ask for?
And you start coming and you start going to the functions, the services, you see everything. Then all of a sudden you turn around one morning and you say, wow, I really love this place. I can't be without it.
The spirit of Yiddishkeit is made alive here.
Every time I go up to the bima, I start crying.
In recent years, we have become an egalitarian, child-friendly, family-oriented, and more participatory congregation. We have experienced the poignancy of Jewish life, and we have learned to celebrate Jewish life. We must continue to do what we have been doing so well. We must also reach out to the greater Jewish community. We must think creatively and sponsor programs which will bring people into the temple. The more people who pass through our doors, the more will our spirits soar. It is possible for a small congregation to do great things and reap the spiritual and uplifting rewards which derive from taking pride in our achievements. Temple Gates must continue to be alive with activity. Lidor Vador, from generation to generation, may we grow from strength to greater strength.